Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Afua. I'm a co-founder of She Leads Africa, and we are so excited to have Janet with us to do our webinar on how to negotiate for what you're worth. If you're starting a business or you're looking to move up in your career, negotiation skills are critical. So we're so excited to have Janet join us and teach us how we can get better. So Janet, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first webinar, and I'm really excited to talk to all of you guys today. So wherever you are, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, welcome.
Great. So Janet, I know you have 18 years of experience in HR and working in the corporate space. So can you just give us a little bit of background about how you found yourself in HR and why you want to share kind of negotiation tips for young African women?
That's a great question. So a little bit about myself. I got into HR right away in college. During my freshman year in college back in 1998, 97 area, I got my first job as an HR assistant, and I was still going to school at that time at George Mason University. And so when I got into HR, I loved it. I loved every piece of it. I was doing a lot of recruiting, getting resumes together for the HR director at that point. And it was just a fabulous experience for me. And then I just moved up along the chain, graduated college, earned my master's degree also in HR, also became certified in HR. And then I just continued going up and up in HR. And now I am the head of HR for a pretty large company that's based in DC, New York, and Texas. So that's my full-time job. When I'm there, I manage an HR department of about 8 people that are all in my team. And I am the advisor to all of the senior team members on how to manage our talent in the organization. So that's a little bit about how I got to HR. Your second question, why am I interested in doing this? I'm interested because I believe that we have so many skills as African women, women who are absolutely tireless and strong and able to be successful in any situation. But sometimes we don't know the rules of the game in any situation or any job, any country. There's always rules to the game. And I think that if you don't empower people to what those rules are, they lose out. And so my goal is to help women and men and everyone from all walks of life understand what it means to be successful and how to get there really quickly. Because it's really about how quickly do you get there. If you don't have the information, it takes you a while to get to your goals. So that's why I do this. And I'm just really happy to be here to contribute and share all this information with you guys.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Janet, and we're so grateful to have you with us. So let's jump right in. So what exactly is negotiation? Kind of what does it mean, and kind of why is it important?
So negotiation is something, what it really means at the end of the day is you asking for what you want to make you happy, okay? So in the workplace, or if it's a job offer, you want to ask for the entire package that will make sense for your family, for you to be able to provide for your family financially, to maybe a work schedule so you can have the right schedule that meets the needs of your family needs if you have to pick up a child at a certain time. So at the end of the day, negotiation is really a conversation. It's a conversation you have with someone, whether it's someone that's giving you a job, or sometimes it can even be a personal matter. Or if you're an entrepreneur with a client, you're negotiating the services that you're going to give them, and then in return, what they're going to do to make sure you're successful. So at the end of the day, negotiation is really about a conversation. It's a discussion. It's the back and forth of trying to determine what is a good place for everyone to be happy in the two people who are negotiating.
Great. Now, how can we, can we jump into the strategies around negotiation? Because you can't just do it, right? I assume you have to be prepared. So if you're getting ready to go into a negotiation, how should you approach it just from your mindset? And then how should we think about developing a strategy?
So with anything that you're going to do, especially if it's something that's very important to you, you have to practice. So strategy number one is practice, practice, practice. And the way you can practice with your family member, you can practice with your friends, you can practice also by yourself by looking in the mirror or through videotaping yourself. Practice includes writing down the notes of what messages you want to get across to the person. So for example, if you got a job offer and it wasn't exactly the amount that you were looking for, you would want to write down exactly what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and in what order. What's the sequence? What you're going to say first, then you're going to say second, and how you're going to wrap it up. So of course, as you know, remember in grade school when you had to write a letter. When you write a letter, you have a greeting, you have a body, and you have a closing. So make sure that your notes has all of those things, and practice before you take that call or you go into that meeting. Practice, your messages and try to rehearse it and memorize. The reason for doing that is it's going to help you be more confident on the call. You're not going to stutter as much. You're going to come across very confident. And then the other person on the other line or the receiving end is going to know that you are very serious. You're really serious about what you want and what you're looking for. And at the end of the day, that's actually makes you look even more worthy of whatever that amount that you're looking for, because you came across more confident rather than scared to ask for what you want for yourself. Another thing to do in practice, not just practicing the day before when you're talking to the person that you're negotiating with, but practice in your everyday life, because it's not something you do the day before. So today, right now, how you can practice negotiating even though you don't have an offer or you don't have a client is if you're going to dinner with your friends, and everyone doesn't know what they want to do, state exactly what you want. Say, look, I want to have this today. So those kind of things help you practice. Or if you are trying to decide between two things in a store, being confident and making that final decision, all of those practices helps you know exactly what you want, what you're going to stand for, and what you're not going to stand for. So when you're ever in a position where you have to push against the grain or ask for something that you want, you'll be more confident because you know exactly what makes sense for you. So as of today, stop being someone that waffles, that says, maybe that's okay, I'll consider that, and be someone that says, this is what I want, and this is what I need for me to be happy.
Got it. So. Now, okay, I think it sounds great. And right. I agree, especially the practice part, because I think many of us will write it down, or we will jot some notes down or on a scribble piece of paper, but we won't actually verbally say the phrase and see if it makes sense out loud or test it on people. Now, right. I know a lot of people are actually very confident when it comes to negotiating with their friends or negotiating, at the market or in the store. But something happens when you're in a boardroom or it's right. an elder or a senior person. Do you have any tips on how to negotiate or how to practice negotiation with more senior people, people that aren't your friends and such?
Right. So that's a really good question. We all get nervous around people that we feel are powerful, people that we feel have control over our lives. What I've learned is that with anything, you have to do it the first time. Okay. Once you do it the first time, you have to have courage to do it the first time. Once you do it the first time, you do it again. And when you do it again, you'll realize that that person usually, in my experience, will respond not the way you think they're going to respond. Because a lot of times our fears tell us the person's going to scream, they're going to be more angry, they're going to treat us a different way. But what I've learned is that if you do it in a way, of course, it's respectful, that is more or less of tones like, I would like you to consider this. Have you thought about this in this way? Or asking questions, clarifying questions. So I hear what you're saying, that this is not the best time to do this project or the best time for this particular question. But I'd like to know, when do you think we can talk about this, and then you set that time to talk with the person. But at the end of the day, your goal is to have that courage to say it in a very diplomatic way, but in a way that also gets your point across. So there's really nothing other than doing it. At the end of the day, it's about making a decision whether you're willing to face your fears and be courageous and say in a very kind way, but still say what you need, or not taking the risk at all. And that's with anything in life. You make a decision to either hide or to walk purposely into what you need. And at the end of the day, if you never ask, you'll never get either.
Great. Okay, so we've practiced, or hopefully we have some more confidence, and we're excited and ready to go into the negotiation. So Janet, can you help us understand, how do we set up a negotiation? So what do we need to have kind of at the beginning of the negotiation, and what does the introduction look like? Or, how do you bring up the conversation? Because we got a couple of questions from our community around, what if I have a job promotion conversation coming up, or I have a performance review conversation coming up? How do I first broach the topic when it comes to negotiating your salary? How do I even bring it up? And then how do I frame it so that it's a positive discussion, as you said, and not one that is maybe contentious?
So every conversation is going to be different. So there's a different conversation you would have if you have a job offer, and there's a different conversation you would have if you are trying to get promoted and get a raise. So but at the end of the day, they're pretty much the same, which is having a introduction, a body, and a closing. So I'm going to start with if you have a job offer. So if you have a job offer, and this is a brand new company that you're going to work for, and the offer letter isn't exactly what you were expecting, my recommendation is to, once you receive it, first of all, always start with pleasantry. Remember the things your parents taught you. So say thank you. This is a fantastic offer. It sounds as if you, the company, have given a lot of thought. So I'll stop right there to say and be positive. It's important because it tells the person that you appreciate the time and effort they put together to present you that offer. Because before they gave you a ring, that HR person or that recruiter had to type the letter, talk to several people in the company to decide how much they're going to offer you. So if you jump off the bat and say, oh, wow, really? That's not going to start the conversation very well. So you start off very positive and be thankful for what has been presented to you. The second step is, before you jump right in, I want you to make sure that it's not just the salary, because maybe the schedule, maybe they want you to work 6 o'clock to 3 o'clock, or work 10-hour days and 12-hour days, and that's not going to work for your family. So if you have several problems with the offer, the salary, the schedule, the location, you want to make sure that you present all of this information at the same time, all the issues that you might have with the offer, and don't piecemeal it, which means on one phone call, you talk about the salary, then you make another phone call and talk about the schedule. That's really time consuming, and in fact, it's kind of annoying at the end of the day for an HR person, because it makes it seem like nothing seems to be good for you. You're continuously asking for more. So make sure you know exactly what you want to get out of that negotiation and present it all at once. So in terms of the offer letter, if it's based on salary, I would recommend you say, wow, this is great. However, it's not where I was expecting to land for this particular position. I've done my research, and I've understand that in this role, this is the going rate, and state the exact rate. Don't state a range. If it's $30,000, $25,000, say this is, or $10 an hour. This is what I understand is the going rate in the market for this position. And based on the skills that I have, I believe that I qualify for this particular range. So definitely state that. And so in terms of stating the range for yourself, don't say, I want to be between this and that. Say exactly what you need to accommodate your life. So once that's done, listen. A lot of times what people do is they keep talking, right? So after you've stated your needs, whether, look, the schedule is not going to work, I think that we should consider this schedule or that salary, stop. After you've made all your requests, stop talking. Don't say another word. Allow the person to respond. And it's okay if they take a while and they're silent. Give them an opportunity and listen very well to what they're saying. They'll give you clues of whether they're open. Sometimes if they're open, they'll say, you know, let me think about this. Let me connect back with my manager, get back to you. Or they'll say, you know what, this is it. This is the best I can do. So if that happens to you, don't push it anymore and say, okay, well, I've heard your position that you cannot give me the salary. I'd like to say that why don't we sleep on it? Why don't we both take a day or two and see what we both can do and get back together? And then state again how much you want. And say again, for me, my expectation for this role is going to be this amount, but I would like to give you time to think about it. And I'll also like to take time to think about it as well. What that does is it continues the conversation. It's not a final no, because most of the time people will say no off the bat to say, no, it's not gonna work for me, and they say no. A negotiation is the back and forth, so allow at least a couple back and forth before you completely stop the discussion. Let yourself walk away, okay? You do not need to continue talking. You do not need to beg. You do not need to talk about, oh, my childcare expenses, this will make my budget. Don't say any of those things. Less is more. So state what you need, ask for time for both of you to sleep on it, and then ask for a time for you to connect. Believe me, that offer will still be there in 24 hours. It's not gonna go away between this evening and the next day.
That's great. So one thing that I heard you say, Janet, was do your research, right? Make sure you kind of, if you believe that the offer doesn't match what you're looking for, that you do your research and you have a response as to what you would prefer to make. Now, many people don't like to talk about their salary. Many people like to be hush-hush in terms of how much they make or what their benefits are. So do you have any tips or advice on how to do a bit of research in terms of what the appropriate salary should be, or how should you be valuing your expertise and your education, especially if maybe you're transitioning to a new industry or you're going to a new company?
So that's a really good question. So I know stateside here in the US, there's a lot of online platforms such as salary.com for you to look at salaries for a particular industry or role. And I know that's not necessarily the case for my homeland, Ghana, and for other African countries. But I think that Forbes does a good job to putting some things out there on the continent in general on salaries. So if you're not able to connect with online resources on how much you should be asking for, I do know that people don't like to talk about their salaries, friends and family members. So one of the things I encourage people to ask family members is not to ask them directly like, how much do you make, right? If they are in that industry that you are about to work in, if it's a friend. Don't ask a direct question because they won't feel comfortable telling you how much they make. But what I would say to them is, hey, I'm considering this job and it's in your field and you know my background. If you were in my position, what would you ask for? So when you flip it in that way, it doesn't necessarily convey to them that they're giving away their salary to you. They're just telling you, I know your work, I know your worth, and so this is what I would do if I was in your shoes. So that's one piece of advice. The other piece of advice is if there are recruiters and HR people in your area, even if you don't know them, cold call them. Like pick up the phone and call a recruiter that you might know, there's a friend of a friend might know, and say, hey, I noticed you recruit for these type of positions and I'm just putting my resume out there pretty soon. Can you tell me the range that the people that you hire what is the range? Hiring managers don't mind giving ranges because they can give you the low end and the high end. And that would help you decide whether you want to fall within the middle range or the high end if you're in the negotiation process. So those are some tips that I like to do. Also, use your social media. We all have a considerable number of people following us, and they're strangers, and they might not tell you exactly how much they're making. But if you post out there, hey guys, I'm doing some research on this particular position for a friend, or just in general, I'm just trying to figure out this position. Anyone have any information on what they've heard in the industry where they're paying for in a particular country? So your social media can also work for you, not just for posting great selfies, but also to finding out salaries in the industry.
Wonderful. Okay, everyone. So we don't have any excuses anymore for saying that we don't know how to come up with a good number. But one thing you recommended was feeling comfortable to take a day to think about it and really evaluate whether or not the offer makes sense to you. Now, we got a question from Eve, who wanted to know, how do you stay confident or maintain your stand if you're nervous about losing the job offer? And maybe a recruiter or a member in HR will say, oh, if you don't get back to us, we'll give it to someone else. Kind of, should you take the offer if you're worried about losing the opportunity?
So that's a great question. It's very human nature to not feel like you want to miss out on something. So before you go into negotiation phase, and you want to make sure this is a job you really want. You have to make sure, is this something that you really want to move forward with? So we've talked about salary, we've talked about schedules, but there's some other intangible things that are important to decide if you want to take a job. Is the job going to give you a lot of growth opportunity? Will you learn a lot from the manager? Is the industry an industry you've been trying to break into that you haven't been able to, but now this position's come up? Because it might not come up again. So before you decide on whether, I always think that you should always try to negotiate and try to get a higher salary, no matter, always try to ask for a few dollars more, because you just never know, and they might say yes. But if they say no, during that evening when you're thinking through the discussion for the next day, you want to decide if this is a company that makes sense for you. If it does, you may take that pay cut. You may go ahead and take it even though the salary is not right at this time, so that you can get the experience that you need so that you can do something else in the future. Now, if you're on the phone and the person is telling you that you have to make a decision right now, it's another opportunity for you to negotiate. I would say, how about you give me an hour? Can we do 2 hours? So never go for it and say, okay, I'm gonna say yes right now. So if they're not willing to take you sleeping over the night to think about it, then say, how about you give me 2 hours this afternoon? Or say, can I have 30 minutes? I think I'm gonna discuss this with my husband. It's a pretty big decision, or my partner, or my parents. So whoever it is that's important to you that you go to as a trusted advisor, I guarantee you that if the person is telling you have to answer right this minute after you've asked them for 30 minutes or 2 hours to talk to a few people that you trust for advice, then I would be very hesitant to take that job, because that means that that company is inflexible. That means that company is not a company that you will feel that your needs are important. But again, if it's the right company for you and your gut is telling you this is the right job, then I have never been let down by my gut. So your gut is that little conscience, that little thing that tells you, this is the right thing to do. Sometimes people say that's God talking to you in that moment. But whatever that is, if you feel that sense, like, you know what, I'm just pushing a little too hard here, everything else checks in my boxes of my needs, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. If your gut's telling you that, then go for it. But if your gut's telling you there's too many red flags, there's too many questions here, then I would push for a few hours to get back to them.
Great, that's very helpful. is it possible, Janet, to renegotiate while you already have the job? So say, you didn't negotiate the first time when you got the offer, but you think or you realize that, okay, maybe I missed out, or after this webinar, you realized, oh, there's so much more I should have asked for. Can you renegotiate when you already have a job?
So I'm going to be very honest, because this is the purpose of this. That is one of the hardest things to do. Once you've taken the offer and you've signed the offer letter and you've taken the job, it is the most difficult thing ever to get the company at that point to give you a new salary. I've been doing this for 18 years. I have never given a new salary amount within a few months or days after the person's joined the company. Because once we have you, we've hooked you in and we think we got the right deal for you. And so now you become an employee. And what happens when you become an employee, we have to treat you the same as everyone else. So if we give you a different offer or a different amount, there's a good chance you're going to tell someone else in the company that we did something different for you. And then the other person's going to come to HR and say, oh, I heard so-and-so got a promotion or a bonus or something a few weeks after they came back or a few months after they've been on the job. And it just creates the biggest headache for HR. So, and also senior leadership. So they never, ever want to give someone a little bit more money or something differently than they treat anyone else, because there's so many regulations and laws around that, as well as it just doesn't create camaraderie in the company if everyone thinks they can make a different change after they've been hired. So that's most likely not going to happen. But this is a good segue to your initial question, which was, what do you do when you want to negotiate during the performance review time or at the end of the year while you're there? So there is also the same format of making sure you set up time to talk to your manager. I recommend that if your company does performance reviews, and let's say they do performance reviews in December of every year. In December of every year, everyone gets a review on how they've been doing for the entire year. Don't wait till December to ask for that promotion when you're doing your review. You should have that discussion about 3 months before, because where in the back end for HR, by the time December comes around, the senior team have already made a decision on how much increases they're going to give for everyone in the company. So what you need to do is, way before they start talking about what they're going to do for increases, you need to start talking to your manager and say, so about September, late August, 3 months before the year end review process, and say, hey, I wanted to just check in. You want to make an appointment with them. I wanted to check in on my performance and just get some feedback from you and how you think everything's going. And then stop there, allow them to tell you whether they think you're doing really great or you're not doing too fantastic. So if you get messaging from them to say, you're doing really great. I'm just so happy to have you here. I think you've done a phenomenal job. I think it's going to be a great year for you. So if you're getting those positive comments, that's where you go for the kill and say, well, I'm so glad you appreciate the work I've been doing. I've been doing some thinking and I really enjoy everything I'm doing here. But I think that I'm ready for the next step. So whether I get more responsibility, I would like more responsibilities. So never ask for more money if you don't want more responsibilities, because why should your boss give you more money for the same job that you're doing now, right? So it's a give and take. You're gonna have to offer something, and that offer is probably more responsibilities. So in that conversation, you should say, I feel like I've done really well and excelled in all of these areas. I'd like to move forward and tackle more things and do more innovative projects and take more projects on and responsibilities. And with all of that, and then list those responsibilities that you think you can do, spell it out, and then say, with all of those responsibilities, I think that I deserve an increase. And the increase that I think would make sense is an additional 5%. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. So always throw it back to them. It's not a demand. It's saying, look, I'm going to do all this extra stuff for you, and I would like to see if you can give me this extra amount of money. And in that moment, also ask them, I'd like your thoughts. What do you think about that? Do you think that makes sense? Do you think that will work for you and the company? And then be quiet. Again, let yourself stop talking. It also helps with your nervousness if you stop talking, and then allow them to respond to that. On the other end, if they are telling you that, you know what, I think you've struggled this year in a number of things. I think that you're doing fine. You're doing average. There's things we can improve upon. If that's the message you're getting, then please know your manager is not going to be receptive to giving you a raise. Raises really only come to people who are doing phenomenal job at where they currently are. No one's going to give a raise to someone that's doing mediocre work where they currently are. And that's usually the mistake that people have. They think they're doing really great and they're not. And then they get upset when the manager decides not to give them a raise because they don't want to pay more money for mediocre work.
Ooh, I hope you guys heard that. She said, if you're not doing the work, don't expect more money. That's just it. So that is, so do your work, basically. That's what I heard. So, Jana, one question that we always get a lot is around the perception of negotiations. And within our women appear as bossy or rude or whatever when they're asking for more money or when they're trying to go into negotiations. So Sharon, she has a business, but when she's doing negotiations with potential clients, she's nervous about appearing as too sassy. And when she's talking and communicating with people, do you have any advice on techniques that young women can use? I mean, part of me wants to say, well, I think it's a societal issue in terms of how we perceive young women and women asking for more. But we do have to recognize that many times we're negotiating or talking to people who are older men, and they may not be used to young women who have confidence and who are asking for these things. So sometimes you have to adjust for whomever your audience is. So have you seen this before, Janet, and kind of what advice would you give for young women who kind of have to manage the perceptions of others when they're approaching a negotiation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, I follow so many great people on Instagram and Twitter, and I think what it makes me do is I live in a bubble. I live in a bubble where I feel like everyone gets it. Everyone gets what Black girl magic means and carefree Black girl, and everyone gets boss up. All these hashtags we've created for strong, fabulous women that can take on the world. And so sometimes we live in this bubble as young people to think that you can walk in the room and own it and be fantastic, and you can. But the most important thing you should do is look at your audience. So if you're in an audience with a lot of older people from a different generation that aren't in your bubble, they won't get those hashtags I mentioned, then you're going to have to adjust. Okay. And I'm not saying adjust to the point where you won't recognize yourself or your friends won't recognize you, but adjust meaning to the point of framing everything you would normally say with people that you're comfortable with in your generation, then frame it in the way that understands that the folks that you're talking to might not get it. So some actionable items. At the end of the day, in any kind of negotiation, to Sharon, if you are talking to older men and there's an expectation for you to be meek and shy and not look directly in people's eyes and all those things that comes with what some people think women should do, you have to remember at the end of the day, no one's going to give you anything you want unless they like you. It's called the likability factor. People would like to bend for people they like, people that they think are kind, people they think that they can see their sisters and their mothers in, so they will make sure that they meet them halfway. So at the end of the day, you want someone to meet you halfway that's not, your same gender, your same generation. So you want to be likable. And so to be likable is not to say you bat your eyelashes or things like that. To be likable means that when you're presented, are you presented in a way where you are focused on the topic, focused on being thoughtful, stopping to ask the other person questions, like you want to get to know what their thoughts are, where they're coming from. Are you interrupting other people as they speak? Are you looking very stern? Are you more likely very relaxed and confident in yourself, but at the same time, are you focused on each person in the room? So in terms of what to do when you're in that situation, you want to make sure you come across knowing your information, like knowing exactly the product that you're trying to sell, the service, being very knowledgeable on what the benefits are for the person that you're trying to either negotiate with or get them to understand it. Because at the end of the day, men and anyone from any generation, they respect people who are smart, confident, and know what they're saying, okay? So if you can back up anything you're doing with complete understanding of what you're selling and being confident, that's also being engaging. Engaging means asking them questions. It's like, hey, I just presented on this. I just shared with you why I think this is important to your business or important to you. I'd like to hear your feedback. I'm going to take a moment to stop right now, hear from you, hear what your thoughts are. So for most people, that's telling them that you want to bring them in. You want to hear what they have to say, that you're not so high on your horse that you can't, like, you're just going to take over. Your thoughts and your opinions are the most important thing. So when you create that engagement of back and forth questions to the person, you respond in, it creates a mini relationship right there in that moment, in that hour space. Another thing to do is get there early. Whatever the meeting is, get there early and get to know the person. And, hey, how are you? I'm excited to be talking to you guys today. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you coming from? How was your commute? How far do you live from this meeting? What are you excited about to hear? What do you want to hear from me today? Really engage them at that personal one-on-one, whether you're getting tea or coffee before the meeting. When you get there early and establish that 2-minute of relationship with the person, especially if they're older, when you start talking, they'll feel like they know you already. And so they'll be more likely to not see you as being sassy or coming across too strong. They're like, oh, this was just a normal, regular person that could be my sister, my mother, or any other family member. And she's there to present. It's not necessarily about being the boss lady. So hope that helps.
Good, great. Now I have a tricky one for you, Janet. Maybe it's not tricky, but I have faced interviews where the question is point blank: how much are you looking to be paid? Right? And so Peace wants to know, should you give a direct answer? I know earlier you had shared don't give a range in response to a salary offer, but what about when maybe you're doing the initial call, or maybe it's your second interview and they're considering and they want to know what you're looking for? Should you give a direct answer to the question, how much are you looking to be paid?
So my response to this question always is no. Don't tell the person how much you want to be made. What I would tell you to do is to say, what's important to me is not just the base salary. What's important to me is the complete package. I like to understand more about who's going to be my manager. I like to understand the benefits that's going to come along with this, the schedule, the environment. So rather than talking salary at this point, I'd love to see this process go through the end. And then if we both believe it's a good fit for both of us, I think that's the real good time to talk about salary. Because should I give you my salary that I want right now and it doesn't make sense for you at the company, I'll lose out an opportunity for me to have a chance to decide if I'm willing to accept the benefits, and the manager and the company is more important. So why don't we give it more time and go through the process? Because I want to get to know you guys just as much as you want to get to know me. So be evasive. Don't, be a little bit coy about it, because I will tell you that if you state a number that is too high for me as an HR person, I will absolutely put you at the bottom of my list and continue on my search. So if your fear is that if you don't give a number, then they're not going to continue with you, well, it's going to happen anyway if you give a number and it's too high. So the first approach is to take that approach of being not committal and kind of evasive. Now, if the HR manager is like, I can't move forward with it, unless you tell me the number, then at that, if they tell you they cannot move forward, okay, and again, let's roll back. Once you tell them you want to be, wait through the process is over, if they stop talking again, let them talk. And if they say to you that this is critical that we know right now, that is the point that you repeat again. So what I'm hearing you say is that I will not be considered for the job if I don't tell you my salary. So stop there again, because again, it's back and forth, right? Never start with a complete give your answer. You want to kind of see how long you can push this. That is the goal. Be firm in that, be comfortable, because it's a conversation. Don't rush through the process. So process 1, say how you want to see the process 2. Number 2, if they say, hey, then ask a question. Don't say yes. Here's the salary then. Don't break down really quickly. Say, so what I'm hearing you say is that I won't be part of this process if I don't give it to you right this minute. When you say that to an HR person, they start realizing they're kind of bullying you. If they're humans and they're kind, they would think to themselves, oh, I'm kind of bullying her right now. Maybe I shouldn't pressure her so much because I really like her. So they'll think, they're human too. So they'll think about all this stuff in the back of their head. And so if you do that, and again, you pause, let them talk. And if they say, well, actually, we really like your resume, so let's see where this goes. That's one option. Option 2, they might say, yes, that's what I'm saying. You need to tell me right now how much you would like to make. And then make sure in all this conversation, you're very upbeat, you're very happy, you're not sounding annoyed. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, if that's the case, then I would like to make, at the end of the day, blank amount. Okay, don't give a range, say the blank amount. I would like to make this blank amount. If you're not comfortable with the blank amount, then you can go with the range and say, look, if we can make things happen between this amount and that amount, then that's good. But make sure your low amount is the amount that you would make you really happy. Don't make your low amount the amount that's like the absolute minimum, okay? Aim high.
Okay, that is great. We got a question around the non-monetary options, right? And you mentioned that salary is not it. And so you should think about other things or potential perks that would help you and your work life, and just make sure that you're enjoying the role. So Janet, what are some of those other things that we should think about that maybe we didn't even know we could negotiate for when it comes to starting a new role, or if you're getting a promotion or things like that?
Yeah, there's so many other things other than money. And this is, money's great. It definitely changes our living status. But I think another thing that's just as important as money is your schedule. So I alluded to that earlier. If the salary's, not exactly where you wanted, but pretty close, another option is try to negotiate the schedule. I think it comes across better if you accept the salary and then start talking about the work schedule, or you accept the salary at a higher amount and then potentially don't touch the schedule. Unless all of it is just important to you. you decide, everyone's individual, that you can talk about salary, schedule everything together. But in terms of the other things that are really important, schedule is important, because if you are making a lot of money, but you don't get to see your family and your children and your partner, you're not going to be happy. So if they're willing to budge and give you a little bit less money, but they'll give you a schedule that works, maybe you come in earlier, maybe you leave later so you can put your child on the bus or make them breakfast in the morning. Those things are really important. They're really going to help you be successful at work. Because imagine that you're getting paid very well, but your schedule's really, really bad. What's going to happen is your balance at home, things that you do at home for your family, is not going to be good. So if your home life is not good, it's going to seep into your work life. So no matter how much money you're making, if you're not going to be successful if you go to home at night and you're fighting with your family because you're never there. So what happens is you go to work the next day and you're grumpy, and then it affects how you talk to your coworkers and how you deal with things at work. So you always want to find that happy medium. So that's one thing you can negotiate. Another thing you can negotiate sometimes is your vacation time. How many weeks in the year that you're going to take vacation, and you always get that in writing. A lot of times it's a conversation your managers go, oh, yeah, you could take 2 weeks off, but it's never put in writing. So never ever do that. But you can negotiate whether you want to get an extra week of vacation compared to the standard that they offered you. Another option to get is potentially a sign-in bonus. Sometimes companies don't want to give you, for me, what I have experienced in my career is we may not want to give you a higher salary because we have someone in the company right now working, doing the same job you're doing, and I can't give you a higher salary than the person that's in the company right now doing the job and doing a really good job. Because we always have this fear as HR directors that you're going to come in and you guys are going to talk, and then one's going to find out they make less money and you just joined the company. And then the person that's been working for us for years is going to get mad at us and quit. So we never like to give more money to someone that's coming in. So if we can't bend on the salary, what we like to do is do a sign-in bonus. So if you are a candidate we really, really want, we'll do a sign-in bonus. We'll say we can't give you that $5,000 extra dollars that you want on your base salary, but we'll give you $5,000 up front as a sign-in bonus. So that's something you can consider asking for. So those are the 3 things: vacation, sign-in bonus, and your work schedule.
Great. That is really helpful. And you want to make sure that you don't just limit yourself, and you never know what options exist if you don't go out there and ask and see how the company can work with you, especially if it is a smaller company and they really like you as a candidate. They're more likely to be flexible. Now we have 10 more minutes. So there are 2 important questions that are still on the list. The first one is, what are the 5 phrases you should never use in a negotiation? What are those words or those phrases that are just going to turn off your potential manager or the HR executive, and that's going to just ruin the negotiation process? And we want to make sure that if those are in our vocabulary, we cross them off. So Janet, what should we not be saying when we get into the room?
So what you should not be saying, and quite frankly, what you should not be saying all the time, and I notice a lot of people do this, is say, I'm sorry to ask for this. So that sorry on that phone call, never say sorry, because I know you're kind of sorry to ask because internally you're nervous, you don't want to ask. It's something you don't want to do it, but you don't want to say it. So never say, I am sorry to ask, because that tells me that you're not really confident about what you're asking, and that tells me I have more power because you're not very confident about what you want, and I can control you and I can get you to see what I want you to do. So never use I'm sorry to ask, and then never say no. Like the first conference with, don't use no right away. Don't say no, this is not going to work for me. Instead of saying no, you want to be more in the frame of saying, let's talk about this. This is a good starting place, but there's more that I think we can get to from here. So don't ever use the word no on the phone. The next is don't say, this won't help me pay for my childcare or my mortgage or my rent or whatever the expense is. Never share your personal reasons why this is not going to work for you. Whether you're an entrepreneur and you're doing a service for someone, don't say, no, this is not going to work for me. You want to just focus on why it's important for you to get this, because the service might benefit this person in this way. Or if it's the offer letter, just talk about the number, your expectation, the number you're trying to get to, but don't just say, this is not going to help me pay my bills. Because then it becomes more personal, and the company HR person saying, I'm not here to pay your bills. I'm not here to get into your bank account information. I'm just here to give you an offer letter. So that's one. And never say, I have another job offer. I know people think that's a good way to tell the person like you're in demand and you're going to leave them before they give you the offer. Don't do that, because if you are someone that already has an offer, the HR person, if you're a borderline, if you're someone we really, really, really want, we're going to fight to get you, okay? But if you're someone that's like on the border, like a maybe, we think you're great, you're better than all the other candidates, but it's like you're gonna work for us, but you're not exactly like the best thing since sliced bread. What you do when you say I have another offer, it makes us go, oh, are they being honest, or are they trying to get me to give them more money? Because most HR people have been doing it for a long time. They've heard the line so many times. And when they hear that line, they automatically think the person's trying to use that as a means to get more. And when you do that, it turns us off and it makes us a little bit annoyed to say, okay, well then go take your other offer. So that's not what you want to do, unless you really, really have another offer. If you have another offer, and that offer is in writing, of course, and that offer is better than the other one you have in front of you, the one you're talking to the person, then you do have an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm considering my options. Don't say I have another offer. Say, look, it's, as you know, my resume, I had a great time talking to you. It's a recruiting process. I've talked to a number of different companies, and I have a number of options that I'm considering. So don't say I have another offer, just say I have another options I'm considering. So they don't know what that options really mean. And then at that point, say, let's see what you and I can get to. And then I'm gonna be making my decision in the next day or two. So don't use I have an offer unless you really have an offer. And if you do have an offer, it better be a better offer than the person that you're telling that you have an offer to.
Okay, so nobody should go out there and bluff and then just scatter the whole thing. Like if you have a real offer, that's good. If not, don't lose out on this opportunity. So Janet, now that we know the things not to say, what are the things that we should be using in order to make sure that we're having a positive conversation, that the people see it more as a collaborative effort and less as like a competitive and contentious conversation? What are the things that we should be saying during the discussion?
Okay, so I'm going to cover some of the things you should be saying, the things you should be doing. So one of the things you should be doing is you should be very positive. One of the things about being on the phone, people think that when you're on the phone, the person can't see your face, so they can't see you smile and your interaction. But it's actually, the research shown that's actually not true. When you smile to yourself into the phone, it actually conveys the other person. They don't see you smiling, of course, but your natural tone become less contentious and you become more softer and you become more open. So make sure when you're on the phone, you're smiling a lot. You are being very friendly and upbeat. And so when you first get on the call, when you get the offer and you hear it, like I mentioned earlier, start with the positive. Say, look, I really would love to work for this company. Start with how much you enjoy meeting everyone. Use words like, everyone's been so great through this recruiting process. Also, Be complimentary of the person that's calling you, saying, you've been an amazing HR person. I've really been impressed by your process. So HR people are very process oriented. They want you to be excited about the process of how you brought them in, interviewed them, got them to talking to different people. So when you say that to them, look, I really appreciated your process. It's been very organized and timely. And I think it's really great. So this is a place where I think I want to be. And then you hit them with, of course, I think we need to start, we need to get to a better starting place than we are now. So another word to use is, I want to make this work. So when you say, I want to make this work, it's saying to the person that you are not going to be a wall. You're not going to put all your force up and not give at all, not compromise, right? So you say to them, I want to make this work. I want us to get to a place that's good for both of us. Using that both of us tells the person that you want to compromise at some point, that this is not going to be some long, drawn out, awful thing that's going to give them a headache. And then saying, I appreciate the offer. Saying things like, I appreciate, I am thankful, I'm glad you called, I'm so glad I was at the final cut. All of those phrases are really good. They're really positive, and it helps the person know that you want to really proceed. Another thing that you want to say is, let us both sleep on it. Okay, that's really important. Unless they tell you on the phone right then and there, they're going to give you what you want, don't walk away from the conversation and make it a one-time conversation. Your goal when you get that call and negotiating is to try to get as many opportunities to talk to the person on different days as possible. Don't let that bad day they might be having be the day that decide to say no to you. So always try to negotiate a time frame where you can get back to the person. So for instance, to say, this is really great. I want to talk to other people. I want to sleep on it. What's a good time for us to talk again? Is tomorrow good? What's a good time? So keeping that dialogue always going is what you want to get to. Of course, it's not going to drag on for 30 days. When I say going, it's in a span of 2 days, 24 hours, 72 hours to really think through things. And the last thing is to ask questions, okay? So rather than just saying no to one thing, ask questions and say, okay, I can see where the salary's starting. Tell me more about your benefits. Then the HR person will go on about their benefits. Tell me more about the schedule. Tell me more about how I'm going to be managed, and when is the performance review time? When's an opportunity for me to renegotiate or opportunity for me to get a raise? Ask questions such as that. Those questions will continue the conversation. They'll help you also get more information to make your decision. If you only take what they tell you and don't ask questions to get more information, you might find out that even though the salary is low, there's all these other perks that you didn't realize that's going to balance everything out. So ask questions. And then the last piece of advice is to say, do you think that this is the best offer that you think that will be presented, or do you think that there's more time for us to continue? And then see if they tell you clearly. If they tell you this is the best offer, don't take it. Not saying don't take the offer, but don't take that as the no. Say, okay, that's great, I hear you. Why don't we both sleep on it? And then the next time you guys talk, hear them out. When you talk to them again, that's an opportunity to say, okay, so we talked the other day. It sounds like we both had some thinking to do. I'd like to hear if there's any change from your end on the offer. And at that point, if they tell you, we've considered it, this is what we're going to give you, then you make a decision then and there if you're willing to walk away or if you're willing to take it.
Got it. That's wonderful. And I think that's exactly the kind of advice we want to have as we close. So I hope everyone out there kind of really takes the time to do their research, think about what's important to them, open up a positive dialogue that lets kind of both the manager or the HR team know what's important to you, but also see what's important to them. And hopefully you come out with a great resolution. So Janet, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Do you have any final negotiation advice that you would give to our community?
Yes. My final negotiation advice is practice being confident, and you can do that in so many different ways. Negotiation is all about your confidence. It's all about knowing what will work for you and what will not work for you. So I encourage you today, practice wearing your hair the way you want to wear it. Practice telling your husband the things that are important to you and your children. Practice also at work right now. If you're working on a project team and you want to give a recommendation for a direction of the project, tell the person right then and there what your opinion is. When you continue to practice being confident, speaking your truth, saying things that are important to you, when the time comes when you're doing an offer, you'll be a little bit more ready and a little bit less nervous.
Oh, that's great. And we just got one last question. Hopefully it's okay if we answer it very quickly. Okay, so we got a question around if you get an advanced degree. So you've built on your skills, maybe you've gone away or you were completing it part-time. You know, when you have an advanced degree or you get additional qualifications, kind of how do you present your case or how do you approach the negotiation process with your manager or your company?
So if you've gotten a degree while working for the company, it's the same process of if you're asking for a raise during the year-end review process. So once your degree's done, you want to send an email to your boss and say, hey, I'm so excited to share with you that after years of working full-time and going to school part-time, I've been successful in completing my master's degree or my advanced degree in this area. I believe that this degree is going to help the company in so many different ways, and then list the things you learned in the degree. Here are the key things I've learned, why in this program I've learned to be a really great, I've learned about all the ins and out of being project management. I've learned the ins and out of being a technology specialist, and I think it's going to be connected to this particular practice in the company. So connect how your degree is going to help the company. Then say in the email or in person, I'd love to take, and right now I'm so excited about this time with my family and being able to complete this degree. So I'm going to take some time to just enjoy the feeling of not being in school anymore and not having to worry about going to classes. And what I'm going to do is I'd like to connect with you in a few weeks to see if with this degree there are any internal positions that I can apply for, or continue doing what I'm doing, but doing things more at the next level, and then talk about potentially, is there a chance that you would consider me for a raise because of this advanced degree? So you would communicate that first, we'll give them time to think about it. No one's going to answer your question right then and there. So put it out there, frame it that you're excited, you feel like it's a huge accomplishment. When you feel like it's a huge accomplishment, they're going to also feel like it's a huge accomplishment. So you have to be very like cheerleader, very happy, very excited. And so they can get a little bit excited to say, wow, it's a huge accomplishment. We need to recognize it in some way. And that recognition could be a salary increase. Give them maybe 2 weeks or 30 days because they might need some time, and then follow back up and say, hey, following back in our conversation, just wanting to see if you've given us some thought. I'm willing to take more responsibilities on, and at the same time, love to hear your thoughts on a potential raise, and then go from there. And if they say no, then that's okay. There's nothing wrong with no. Companies get to decide what they want to do. If they say no, continue doing your work with the same energy, the same positive energy that you had before. Do the job, and then if you think it's time for you to use your degree for the marketplace, then start looking for another job.
Got it. That's wonderful advice. So thanks so much, Janet, for chatting with us and sharing your expertise. We actually will be bringing Janet back in about a month for another webinar on building your career brand. So stay tuned for that. If you're looking for more advice or tips or expertise on launching your career and kind of building a successful career, make sure you signed up for She Leads Africa and join our community at sheleadsafrica.org. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.